Are you a digital nomad who's finally ready to move somewhere new? Or are you someone who's just starting out and doesn't know the good places from the bad? Well, either way, you've come to the right place. Today, we're going to be ranking the best places to live for digital nomads. Watch till the end because there are some hidden gems here that will blow your mind. Cape Town, A tier. We're starting off very strong. Cape Town is one of the best places you could visit if you're a digital nomad. If you're fluent in English, you'll have absolutely no trouble communicating with people here. And with over 100 co-working spaces located throughout Cape Town, there's no issue carrying your work with you either. For about $1,000 a month, you can easily find a lavish apartment overlooking the coastline, and the food here will leave your mouth watering and your stomach grumbling for more. Cape Town does have its fair share of gang-related crime, but the city is generally pretty safe, and healthcare is considered pretty solid as well. So if you're thinking of packing your bags for South Africa, we'll definitely have to support your decision. Cape Town is an easy A tier, but if you're looking for something a little better, keep watching because we have some S tiers coming up soon. Krakow, Poland, B tier. Next up, we have Krakow, Poland. We bet you're not seeing this name in many lists, are you? But there's so much that makes Krakow a really solid place for a digital nomad to visit, and it ticks off pretty much all the boxes you can think of. Poland is extremely affordable compared to its European neighbors. So cheap, in fact, that you can easily get away with spending less than $1,000 a month. The city of Krakow is also extremely walkable, so you often won't need to spend any money on transport either. Not to mention the massive leg workout you'll be getting too. Now, there's also no shortage of activities, including kayaking and cycling. And on top of everything else, you won't have any connectivity issues here either. The internet is cheap, and the average speed around the city is 30 megabytes per second. So, what's the catch when it comes to Krakow? Well, for one thing, healthcare is expensive if you don't have insurance through the National Health Fund. And the city is not queer-friendly, so if that's a deal breaker for you, then we definitely would not recommend going there. But if you can deal with those things, then Krakow is a pretty solid choice. And that leads us to give it an easy B tier. Sofia, Bulgaria, D tier. Another hidden gem. Can you guess which tier Sofia is going into? The city constantly lives in the shadow of Bansko, Bulgaria's other nomadic hotspot. Sofia's internet speed is lower than Krakow, with an average of around 20 megabytes per second. Rent can also max out at a slightly higher number, with an average Airbnb costing about $700 and the average cost of living for one person being just under $1,500. Now, that's not as much as Lisbon, but compared to Krakow, it is a lot. And just like the last few entries, English isn't spoken as commonly as most non-natives would like. But it's not all cons. The city has a lot going for it. If you're a performing arts major, Sofia, with its abundance of theaters and cinemas, is the place to be. Public transport will never let you down, and the sights around the city are to die for. But this time, the disadvantages of living in this city are just a little too hard to ignore. Sorry, Sofia, you're going to have to go into the D tier. Lisbon, Portugal, S tier. This is probably one of the easiest ranked cities. Lisbon is going straight to the S tier, and here's why. Not only is it one of the most livable cities in Europe, but it also has a thriving community of digital nomads. So you're guaranteed to have a lot of people you can count on to show you the ropes here. There are plenty of group meetups and interesting events like the Web Summit. On top of that, Portugal's beauty is in full bloom here, with plenty of rooftop restaurants and colorful streets, and even the chance to go surfing. You'll find that you'll always have your schedule fully packed here. There are only a few slight cons of staying here. The first is that while English is very widespread, Portuguese is still the official language here, so you might have slight difficulties because of that. There is also the fact that compared to some of the other destinations on this list, Lisbon still ranks slightly more towards the expensive side. Regardless, the benefits outweigh these things by a long shot. There's a reason it's still one of the top destinations after all. With that in mind, we're putting this in a solid S tier. Bangkok, Thailand. Bangkok isn't one of the usual suspects when online lists talk about good destinations for nomads, but it's been so good for so long that it just had to make its way here. The city has a lot going for itself. Not only will you find plenty of foreigners in this melting pot of a city, but the neighborhoods are also alive with local life and tradition. From street food to cultural landmarks like the Buddhist temples and the Grand Palace, the city will never leave you bored. And if you're a fan of good nightlife, then Bangkok is the place to be. Healthcare is also a very big benefit of living here. The private hospitals are state-of-the-art, so if you find yourself a little under the weather, don't worry because the city has your back. Living in Bangkok would cost you, on average, $1,400 per month, including anywhere between $300 and $900 for a one-bedroom apartment in the heart of the city. And the internet speed is pretty decent too, with an average of about 20 megabytes per second. Now, the biggest benefit? Thailand offers foreigners 1-year visas if they're willing to learn about the culture there. Even just taking a language lesson or joining Thai boxing class works. So your stay there will be the perfect time to develop a new hobby. You might even return a boxing champion. Bangkok, congratulations. You're also going to the A tier. Toronto, Canada, B tier. Now, this is a place you don't hear talked about very often. Maybe because it's such an obvious pick. But Toronto has a lot to offer to any digital nomad. Toronto is like New York City, but maybe with a little more heart. You'll find yourself in a community that's diverse, friendly, and safe. And the huge metropolis still manages to walk the fine line between big city chaos and small town charm. There's a cafe on every corner, plenty of co-working spaces, and fiber optic internet. It's basically a paradise for digital nomads. The only thing bad about this place is the price points. The minimum for one person being $4,000. Now, you can cut this down by moving to the outskirts of the city or the rural areas without sacrificing most of the benefits that come with Canada, but compared to the other entries, that amount of money is just way too much. So let's do a bit of thinking here. Where should we put Toronto? Maybe B tier is where it's gonna make its home. Budapest, Hungary, S tier. Did you know that the average internet speed in Budapest is 40 megabytes per second? There are a lot of things that make this city a choice that's actually pretty hard to match. Not only does it have top-notch food, for just $30 you can get a Michelin star meal, and a nightlife scene that will leave you wanting more and more and more. Now, that's enough to count us in, but it's also extremely easy to get around the city, and English is very widely spoken. Additionally, the city is also very cheap to live in. With a monthly budget of $1,500, you can get by very easily. The country also launched a visa for remote workers in January called the White Card. You have to make just over $2,000 a month in order to apply, which is a pretty sweet deal. There's only one slight downside. There's a bit of petty crime in the city. Budapest has the highest crime rate in Hungary, but it's still a lot safer than most places in Europe. So while we had to mention it, it shouldn't be a problem for you. And with that being said, we're going to have to put Budapest in the S tier as well. Istanbul, Turkey, C tier. With a rich history, low cost of living, incredible social scene, and life-altering cafe culture, Istanbul promises to be a great experience for any digital nomad. The internet is fast and reliable. There are a lot of co-working spots, and you can even find plenty of organizations working to connect foreigners in the city, arranging picnics and club nights. And when you're not bar hopping, you can explore the many historical landmarks like the Blue Mosque and the Hagia Sophia. The average living cost is less than $1,000, which is just absurd. And you can get a 90-day visa upon arrival, so you have plenty of time to decide if you want to stay longer. There's just one catch. While the tourist areas are generally pretty safe, there will be some places that you have to avoid. The city of Istanbul has a lot going for it, but just because of this one thing, we might just have to put it into a C tier. Now, our ranking isn't definitive. You might have had a completely different experience in these cities than we did. To each their own, as they say. But if you're looking for options about where your next destination is, any one of our S or A tier rankings is a very solid pick. What do you think about the cities we talked about today? Is there any city you would like us to rank? Let us know in the comments. And if you learned a thing or two from this video, feel free to give us a like and click on the bell icon too.